This is a pretty good one, isn't it? This is great. Yeah. This is my 21st consecutive burn. You know, it's kind of funny. Like when it was like my 20th anniversary, like it felt like something to be like really like a badge of honor. Perfect attendance. Like first year was 2023. Like every year, I was like really proud of like 20 years. But when I tell people like 21 years, now I start feeling like kind of guilty. There's a difference between 20 is like an accomplishment. 21 is like you're still doing this thing every year. You haven't found anything better out there that you could be doing. And I haven't. This is one of my favorite places in the world. I'm a ride or die burner. I think I acknowledged that I had to surrender the fact that I was a burner. I think I was in denial for a while until about maybe 2012 is when I really surrendered, and I realized, okay, this is part me. There's no hiding it anymore. But this has been a great burn. I love all of them. You know, I don't know if I have a favorite, but we're at Friday. Friday's a great day. Thursday is one of my favorites, but Friday is really special because you've got, it's like the culmination where everyone's ideas and dreams and inspirations and all the projects that they've been imagining, it's the day where all of the infinite possibilities sort of crystallize into the 100% probability of this is what it is. You know, we're like right at the crest of the entropy wave of like maximum novelty. You know, that's the good news. The bad news, it's all kind of downhill from here. You know, once everything starts coming apart, we have to pack it all back into boxes and trucks and get out of here. But Friday is one of my favorite days, you know. Yeah, so, does anybody have any, yes, how am I going to start us off?
I haven't gone over there yet, but I heard some piece made with the foam bath, and I was curious about it, inspired by the foam kilometers.
I'm going to say maybe. Yeah, I'm going to say maybe because I feel like there's a few things that I know that I'm doing that I've committed to, but one of the advantages of coming here for 21 years of being such a relic of this desert is like I was driving my bike through Esplanade last night, and I think it was around maybe like 6:15 in Esplanade, and there was a full gallery of my work at the elephant camp that I had no idea it was put up there. It took me a while to figure out where the artworks came from. I think they were like refugees from the Wisdom experience. And so there's often things that I might be involved in that I'm not aware of. So maybe is the best answer I can give you to that question until I can confirm it. Possibly, maybe, there's that. Confirmed things I'm doing that are on my schedule tonight. Shameless plug tonight at Frothville, at the Cube, the gallery, the big square, 9:30 Esplanade. I'm doing a visual set at 4:30 a.m. tonight, and that parlays really nicely into the Sunrise Random Ribs set. I will not be performing as Random Ribs, Random Rap this year, unfortunately. I know people are disappointed. I pulled that off last year. This year I'm just going to be myself, but I will be enjoying the ribs along with you. Yeah, next question. Yeah.
So, I would like to go festival. What's your experience with that? I look forward to going there someday. I missed it because of COVID. So, what's your experience with the festival? The pandemic, most of it. Yeah, so,
Yeah. So, now, as I sort of grow older, I don't really have the energy to do as many events as I have in the past, but like the two main pillars of my favorite places to experience this emerging festival, music, art, psychedelic, creative communities. Like my two pillars are Burning Man, which is, I'd say, generally on the masculine vibe. And then there's a festival in Portugal every 2 years called Boom Festival. And it's a psychedelic trance festival. And I went to my first Boom in 2008, and I've been to every edition ever since. It took me several years before I finally surrendered enough, until I got to the place where I could surrender enough of my ego to have the dance floor of psychedelic trance totally love me unconditionally and become a psychedelic trance fan. It's for everybody. It is for psychedelic trance is for everybody, but everybody might, depending on where they're at, it might take them longer to kind of like decalcify aspects of their kind of fortified ego that's hanging on to the part that thinks that they're better than psychedelic trance. And it's a process. That's what Boom Festival is all about. The Dance Temple it's a machine that's designed to take 35,000 people at the same time from all over the world and systematically decimate their individual identity until everyone. So there's one stage called the Dance Temple, and the Dance Temple is the heart of the whole festival. So it'll fit 30,000 people all dancing at once to the largest Function One system you've ever seen. But it's an ecosystem, so there's several other stages. They all serve the Dance Temple. You've got an alchemy stage, which is a bit more progressive. Plosi's played there, B. Svensson's played there. They've got an unbelievable chill out stage. Some of the best down-tempo ambient artists around the world. They've got an organic sacred fire stage. They've got a groovy beach, kind of like Ibiza. They got something for everybody, for sure. But it's all kind of in service to the Dance Temple experience. If people go to the Dance Temple and we'll be dancing for 14 to, my buddy did a 36 hours on the dance. That was his record, 36 consecutive hours at the Dance Temple. And then after that, then you need to go to the chill out a bit before you can recharge to go back to the Dance Temple.
That was great. That's great collaboration.
It's amazing. Yeah. Anybody into psytrance? Just you got a couple. Anybody psi curious? Like you might be thinking about joining that. So the way I like to sell it to people is that the world's pretty interesting right now. I think the world's always been really interesting, but we're at a particular junction where it does seem that I come up against the friction of more points of divisiveness and people at odds and people against each other than I can remember in the past decade. It seems like we're trending towards kind of being divided and conquered, and that sucks. It's not a great feeling. My favorite thing about being on a trance dance floor is that there's this moment when you're surrounded by, just say, I think it peaks out at 35, but let's call it 30. Think of the last time that you were surrounded by 30,000 people from almost every different country on the planet, multiple cultures, multiple languages, multiple age groups, young, old. You've got crazy dreadlock Nagas out there that are dancing. You have this massive melting pot. And at that moment, there are these moments. I wouldn't say it's this continuous ecstasy, but there are distinct moments when the trance music grabs you from the bottom up. It loves you unconditionally. It doesn't care what you look like. It doesn't care what you're dressed like. It doesn't care about your dance moves. It doesn't care about your agenda. It just, if you can accept it, it just loves you. So it's bottom up. Burning Man is the pinnacle of kind of like the top down conditional love. You can experience incredible love here with people, but there's lots of conditions you have to meet. You have to be kind of part of the right camp, or with the right crew, or wearing the right bling, or having the right, there's a lot of, once you meet all those conditions, it's still love, and it's great. I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. Psytrance is different. Psytrance doesn't care about that. You just have to show up and be open. So when you have this experience of everyone that's feeling that, it's almost like the music starts dancing you like a puppet. And there are these moments where when you have all 30,000 people in that moment just agreeing that this, like what's happening right now, is the most fucking amazing thing ever right now. And that sense of agreement, it's like you don't get that at like a football game with thousands of people. You got people that think this touchdown is great and the other that hate that there's a touchdown. I think it's the closest thing I think I'll ever get to like feeling like a Swiftie, Like that's gotta be awesome. I totally get it. When I see a Taylor Swift concert, I'm like, that's what Psytrance is like. Only less lyrics, way less lyrics, not so sexy, but it's similar. It's the closest thing I can get to being a Swiftie is being in the Psytrance, and that's why I love it.
What is your favorite psychedelic compound for meta thinking or creating art?
That's a great question. I've gone through a progression of, I say, favorite psychedelics, but after about 20 years of experimentation, I am still a pretty ride or die LSD guy. It's really, I've tried a lot of them out there. I feel that part of it is, it's not for everyone, but over the years, I have been able to, I think, just develop a really good working relationship with it. And it depends. I mean, not all acid is created equal. So, but if I can find, every once in a while when I get on like a good crystal and you really understand it and you really know the difference between what like 1 drop and 2 drops, and once you really, gauge the miles per gallon you can get on that, then that can really take me away. Never been a fan of mushrooms as a creative inspiration. I definitely went through some years where ketamine, I found like incredible creative freedom and insights within that, but it was, the flame that burns twice as hot, burns half as long. Like it wasn't, my ketamine days were not a long-term sustainable roadmap for a lifestyle that I wanted, because I like the ability to control my bladder, like when I'm older, there's these little catches that I'm just don't really feel like I want to wear diapers, in like 5 or 6 years, so that didn't really work out. But I find that with LSD, I can work with it in a way where there isn't as much of an agenda as some other psychedelics, and I feel that one of my favorite elements of it, and it's so fascinating with psychedelics, is that each one is different, but we all, we are all our own unique cocktail that that happens when we take psychedelics. We don't all take psychedelics in the same way. And I've shared in the past, like I have aphantasia, which is I don't have a mind's eye. Like I don't see things visually like when I close my eyes. And so for LSD, what I found, I remember being it was in San Francisco, like the early 2000s, and before I met this visionary scene, I was working in like for film and video game, and I was like a closet psychedelic artist, so I would spend my weekends and just kind of lock the door and turn the phone off and binge for like 3 days on acid, just drawing, and then clean up for work on Monday. But I'd find, this was the time, I'm totally dating myself, like it was still sort of like flip phones. I remember I had a little digital camera. I used to use cameras to take photos. And I could be working on a piece on acid, and I could take a picture of it as I was drawing. And as I kind of looked in the viewfinder, I would visually see with my eyes open, like different possibilities of where it would be. And so I think in absence of having an active visual imagination, I've developed a really strong muscle for pareidolia, which is sort of making meaning out of meaningless shapes and clouds and things. And so when I'm on acid, it's the closest I can get to kind of a proxy of maybe what imagination is, because as I'm looking at things, I can see them turning into different possibilities. I can see just these shapes of these subjective shapes, like they're turning into a tiger. And because my drawing, the way that I taught myself how to draw is very much constructive. So it's like building forms and shapes and anatomy and bones. And so all I need is like a little bit of visual direction, and I'm kind of off to the races there. And acid and we just got a really great working relationship there. And I think, but beyond even just say the visual effects of it, I love acid because it's, I don't know, sometimes I consider it more, even less on a, like I have done a lot of acid out here. I actually like doing drugs by myself. I found out I'm not great at parties when I'm super high. I like having conversations with people. Believe it or not, I think Burning Man is not a great place to be doing lots of psychedelics. If it's your first time, not a great place to do psychedelics for your first time. But what I do enjoy about it is I feel that, I think as many artists and many of my friends, I think part of what I imagine through conversation with them, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find and express something that feels true to us. And so that's one of the, I can't speak for all artists, but I know a lot of us, we want to find something deep. And LSD for me has always been such an incredible, it's just like a truth detector, an inner truth detector for myself. It's really hard to lie to yourself on a strong dose of acid. And depending on the strength of the acid that you're taking, it has ways of definitely revealing the places and the corners and the things in your life that are not in truth and not in alignment. I can take acid and go into a national forest, and I can see the truth of the trees and the geometry and just like almost to like the molecular resolution of things. Like I can see how pure and beautiful those things are. And when you put that lens inside, it helps me see truths of myself. And for me, it's almost like at this point in my life, like I probably go on a journey maybe like once a month. I try to kind of make some time, because it's become almost like preventative maintenance. If I don't do it for too long, those little gremlins and shadows can kind of start reinforcing themselves. And if you don't keep it in check, it's hygiene. There's psychedelic mental hygiene that needs to get done beyond just like the creative realm, that I find it's really important. It helps keep me honest. But I'll share too, though, I gotta say, every time that, even when because I'm a dad, I've got like 3 kids, and so I need to schedule like my acid trips. We need to get like, maybe sometimes I send the kids and my beautiful wife to a hotel for the weekend, or they hang out with their sister. Like it's got to be on the calendar these days. But even on those days where I take the time and I schedule things off, I think every time I might give myself like a deadline. Okay, we're gonna get everything ready, get all the pencils sharpened, get all your pieces together. We're gonna drop at like 10 p.m. And then like 10 p.m. goes by, and then it's like 11 p.m. And then like I always chicken out a little bit before I do it. And I think that's a good thing. I feel that there's a healthy respect that I have for it, that I still have to like make a decision, and face some type of a fear. But it's a healthy type of fear. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, after a few hours, there's this moment where when you're in the thralls, you're like, why am I not doing acid every day? What was I so afraid of? But then you forget by the time you do it next time, and you have to kind of get that courage. So, but it's a good question.
Thank you.
How long does the trip last for you?
I mean, it depends on how much I do, but I'd say that usually there's like 2 hours of kind of ramp up time, and I definitely want to be working on something like as I start feeling the effects. I like to kind of like gradually meet it to a place. And then there's a good like maybe hour and a half of sort of when I realize like I'm at the peak of everything I'm experiencing, and I wish that part lasted longer, but it feels like no matter what, it always feels like it goes by too fast. And because there's a point too where there's a challenge, and I've realized this over years, where because of the process I have, if I'm working digitally and I'm kind of on the peak of would be like an ideal acid trip, there's times where I can see, I might start off with a bunch of subjective shapes and colors, and I can start seeing, sometimes I can see that even the different layers as almost kind of like physically different layers coming off of a monitor. Like I can see things in a hyper resolution, and with my eyes open, there are times where I can see like the potential of what I want this thing to be. But to get there, there's lots of like scaffolding and infrastructure and things. Like there's this challenge where I have this very limited amount of time to communicate what I can see in this very special state of mind, and crystallize that like into pixels or lines or shapes so other people can see it. But there's a fuse, and I'm only going to be able to see it for so long, and it's a very kind of tricky balance to stick that landing. There's times where like I had something, maybe I got too ambitious in the vision that I had, and I tried to put it all together, and when you're high, it all looks great. It always looks awesome when you're high, pretty much. Very rarely does it not look good when you're high, because I've had these times where I've had up all night and was so excited about what I did, and sometimes I'm really excited to like see it the next day, and you're like, man, this is going to be great, and then you look at the next day and you're like, it's not so special at all. Like I can't even make, what was I thinking on that? And then there's the danger of being like too high. This would happen I used to have different combinations of ketamine and acid together, where it's like a throttle. There's a point where if I go too far and I kind of turn those inner pareidolia knobs like past 10, like into 11. I think I've shared this story, but I remember one time I was working on a piece, and I was way gone. I was like K-hole, couple hundred miles. I was into it, and and sometimes back in the day I used to kind of record the screen too, and sometimes I like to see a time lapse of it after. And there was this moment. I want to think that what I was creating, it was really just a bunch of shapes, totally abstract shapes, but there's this moment where it kind of turned into Shiva, and then it turned into like all these like Naga snakes coming out of this lotus. And as a digital artist, the one thing that no matter how high I get, I've conditioned myself to like the key command of like save as, like an iterate save that'll just save it with like a different number, prefix or suffix at the end. And there's a time where I was just blown away by what I was seeing, and I just keep like saving it and saving it and saving it. And when I look back at the video, there was like 15 minutes of me just looking at the same image, saving it over and over and over, because it just kept becoming more amazing. I was like, this is the version. So it's like, wah, 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 wah. Gotta just reel it back just a little bit. Fine line.
Hello, I have a question for you. Great. So I feel like I've had the honor to see you speak with you multiple times now, and I feel like when I hear you talk, I see and feel so much emotion and inspiration when you talk about like your family and being a father. And I'm wondering, so now, right, you have 3 kids, you have this beautiful wife, you're post like the fire. How is your art being affected by or inspired by, how has it changed by you being a dad and being a husband? Like, are parts of, like, how is that getting poured into your work? Do you feel like it's being inspired by some of the things you're doing now? Like, your AI characters look so, like, it's stuff that, like, I feel like if I was a kid, I'd be so excited about seeing it. So where is that going into your art or, like, your process?
That's a great question. Thanks so much for that. It's really thoughtful. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to answer that. You know, I feel that, like, you know, I think initially, like, the ways my art changed, I think one of the more significant ways the way the art's changed is, I mean, right off the bat, it's like once my first daughter was born, it was sort of like an instantaneous, like, I just realized, like, I am not the main character in this story anymore, and sort of making space for this new amazing person. I mean, gosh, the ways that my kids have taught me about, like, what unconditional love is and what that means, like the breakthroughs I've had through my own heart and learning that I was worthy of love only from seeing how they loved me back. Like, there's been so many just profound, like, human changes, and that obviously will ripple out into everything. I think no matter what piece I'm doing, like, my kids are always, like, in my mind. Like, no matter what, or whatever idea I have, or, you know, lately I've been doing a lot of work for clients, like, I'm always thinking, like, I know at the end of the day, when I come home, they're gonna wanna, like, see what Dad's working on, and I always wanna make it something that they'll be like, oh, wow. So, like, you know, the most objective, lots more animals. They love animals, you know. Some days we wake up in the morning and we, like, draw Pokemon together. They love that their dad can just, like, they can point to a picture of a Pokemon and Dad can nail that Pokemon. Just crush. I can crush a Gengar, you know, so hard. And that's just, like, magic to them. I remember when I was a kid and I saw other kids, there's, like, one of my cousins could, like, he figured out how to draw, like, back in the 80s, like, the Ghostbuster logo, and I watched him, like, draw the Ghostbuster logo in front of me, and to me it felt like it was just exactly what and I remember that feeling of, like, that's a magical thing, that someone can take this pencil and kind of control it. So I do encourage a lot of that with them. Yeah, but it's something, it's like, I work, when it comes to sort of, like, post, I think there's 2 different things that have affected my work. You know, there's definitely, like, the post-barn, which has been a lot. It's interesting, there's been such, it's been hard lately, just with everything. I mean, I assume everyone I talk to is kind of having a harder time this year than they were last year. I don't know anyone that's like, we're crushing. It's better and better, like, you know, I'm sure people are, but, you know, things are harder. Things are more expensive. I've got 3 kids. I feel like I need to actually work harder to sustain, like, where we're at. So that does involve a lot of taking on some client work. And I've been fortunate that all the client work I've had has been things that I'm grateful that I really, I enjoy doing that work. But when I look at them, like, just like looking back from, like, the 6 months, I'd say, or maybe like the last year, what I've noticed, the first thing I started noticing is that everything, and this is part of being a dad, everything takes me longer than I think it's gonna take. And I don't know if I just have, like, when I'm talking to a client and I'm estimating my time, if I just think, you know, I'm 46 now, but I feel like there's part of my, I think, psychological profile did kind of calcify and cauterize it, like, when I was 28. Like, I still kind of look through a 28-year-old's eyes all the time, you know? So I think I'm still sort of stuck on what I used to be able to produce before I had a family. When I estimate how long, so things take me longer. I love spending time with my family, so I have a lot less time to work. So I need to be more efficient, and I've got just incurable executive function, which is difficult. So I have to kind of come up a lot of inner friction in myself on how to maximize my time. But I have found this trend, and I think now that as I become more aware of it, I want to. It's not something that it's more something I'm noticing and not something I'm advocating for. But with with all of this new generative AI and this technology out there, I'd say I'd have to admit it's had more of a significant effect that I would have anticipated it did, or maybe not, but for me it actually started, the way that it kind of crept into my workflow was kind of sneaky, where in the last several projects I've done, we haven't released any of them yet, but I feel that because now I have to compete against a machine that makes infinite cool looking images on prompts, that I need to just be extra. And the pieces I'm making now are just so complicated and specific. Like even like, I do a lot of 3D and 2D together. My geometry counts have went from maybe like 2 years ago, like a 12 million polys as far as like the little polygons on a model would be a lot. And the last project I had, it was 200 million polygons. So just like my polygon use is exponentially increased because I feel like I need to make something that's unpromptable, and nobody's even asking that or forcing me to do that. It's like an inner decision that I've made, but it's not one that I make consciously. It's something it's just kind of crept into my own understanding of what I feel is like a good job boy. And so that's kind of increased, and I'm reconciling that because it's not sustainable, because it takes me just way too long to finish things now, and then deadlines slip, and I've been progressively late for like the last 3 months, but I feel like I actually finished almost all of my projects. The nice thing about having a bunch of deadlines that converge, when you get them done with at the same time, then you're kind of free. So there's been it's been a lot of work, but at the same time, like, I enjoy what I'm doing. I feel if there's one skill that I've developed, it's the ability to be present and find enjoyment in the process of it. But the process is still hard. I know I have some friends that I think are better at every creative experience. Is just like they kind of sit down. I don't know how people imagine it, that you sit there and the muse comes and all these beautiful decisions come out, and the longer you work on it, the better it gets. But it's hard. It feels like as much of us have been able to kind of master different tools or become more comfortable, or I'm more comfortable in how I can create things and my techniques. There's a moment where, like, each piece, it's a beautiful struggle, but it's a struggle. The one new piece of art that I created out here for this burn, it was I was commissioned to do a portrait of this woman named Annette. I had never met her before, but her partner commissioned me maybe 6 months ago, maybe a little longer, and it was of his wife, and she tragically passed to like a car accident. And so I've spent like the last month, but the last 3 weeks leading up to the burn was me working on this large, it's like a 40 by 60 traditional portrait, and they're actually going to have it at I think they're displaying, I just dropped it off right before I came here, and they're displaying it at 7 at Camp Daydream, so 7 and E. So if you want to see the piece, we're doing like a ceremony around it at sunset. But it's the kind of thing where it's like, here's your mission. You need to make a portrait of this person that you've never met, and here's 300 photographs of her, and here's the video of her memorial. And it's a super hard piece to do. I mean, there was so much. I've never cried and loved someone I've never met before, because it's a very intimate process. Like my process, like I take, before I just find, you know, the angle or the photo, I do a lot of, I need to understand just from a practical, like how the face works. I need to draw her face from different angles so I can sort of like metastasize like who this person is. And, but I'd say like after like the first week, like I still have like anxiety, like, man, am I gonna pull this off? Like, this is so important to so many people. Like, am I gonna get her likeness right? Am I gonna make the right decision? She had this huge, beautiful smile, and smiles are hard to draw. It's difficult to make a smiling face. And so there's, you know, I still have the same insecurities and things that like come up, and yeah, it fascinates me that I still do that, because at the end, thankfully, I felt like I pushed through, went for the smile, I had to call friends that were painters, and they gave me all the tips on how to make a good smile. So that could be another talk. But then there's this, it's like struggle, insecurity, fear. It's not going to be enough. I'm going to disappoint all these people. And then there's this turning point where sometimes it's just one night, or it's one decision you make, and then it starts working, and then it starts working a bit more. And to the point where it's like, at the end, I feel confident, like I totally stuck the landing. And there's part of me that believes in myself, that knows that I'm going to do that, but in the process, I still get lost in the woods of all those, and I think that's part of the process. It's like sometimes each piece I do, there's an element of me like overcoming a certain obstacle, whether that's the obstacle of meeting someone's expectations or the obstacles that I created myself. But I think that's why I love just art as the psychological friction that it gives me as a way of processing. So everything that happens in my life, I process through the pieces that I do. It all sort of comes out in the wash that way. So it's a very long answer to that question, but thanks for asking me. Camp Daydream, yeah. I think I'd say like it's not there. You know, this is
at 7 o'clock at Daydream, and what's the address?
At E, but I will
Where's
preface
the
it as 7 and E.
It's right here.
No, sorry, 2.
Thank you.
2 and no, is it 2 and F? It's 2 and F. But I will say it's a private
Got it, it's
ceremony. You know, it's like
Also, we should all come and see.
I wouldn't like go
It's
at
their
the
memorial, understood.
Kind of, I don't know. Like it's not in the who, what, why, where, when
Yeah,
thing. But I think they're gonna have it at display. There's a smaller version they're gonna bring out to the temple.
Okay.
But it
So,
was cool. It's actually a traditional piece. Like it's all
Can we
pencils.
see it later? Will it be displayed there? Just we go by?
I think
Just-
it should be. I think
Okay.
if you went, I brought a huge easel out for it with a light. So I think they're gonna have it there for the rest of the burn. Because
Awesome.
I take the original back with me and finish it up and then send. Unfortunately, their husband Emery is in Jamaica. He wasn't able to be here, but he kind of made it for his whole community.
Okay, so I do have a question though. I wanted to just get clear on that about AI.
Yeah.
And I missed your talk at Fly Alchemy a couple of years ago on AI, but just is there, you dove into it quite a bit, but can you use AI in the work in your own work? Is there a way to like program AI with a bunch of Android Jones style stuff and then give it the prompts and create an AI piece that's use it as a tool? Like you're a master of the digital art tools, so isn't it just the next step to then employ AI as a digital art tool in your work?
Yeah.
Or do you already?
So it's a good question. When it came out, that was sort of my. I think it was probably part of like somewhere between like bartering and the acceptance stage of the grief of like the death of art as we know it. And I figured, well, I guess I could take advantage of this and not just feed it all my art and train a model to make art in my style perpetually. And so we did that. Fong and Scott and I, like we worked for like a year and a half making this model Chimera, which is, very accurately trained on my art to create images kind of in my style. And I worked with it for a while. It wasn't, because all the images we trained on are very low resolution, so it's not capable of really putting out anything that has a really high amount of specific details, so I can't say, like, it's never gotten to a point where I could put that side by side to a piece that I was really proud of and be like, this is there's no, the Pepsi challenge doesn't really work in that setting. But it did, we got it to make faces, and we got it to make pretty convincing, like, small little avatar faces that would be in my style. And I will say, like, I definitely had some really interesting experiences working with this model that we trained on my work. It was almost like, I kind of talk about I don't have a visual imagination. It was like having another surrogate imagination. It was like, well, what if I put these prompts in? It was a fun thing. My kids and I would play with it, and they would like want to see like what a hippopotamus, like giraffe, unicorn would look like in my style. And it does an approximation of it. And I was using it at first to make pieces. I would just make lots of little elements with it and then choreograph it all together. So it was kind of like having like a dumb symphony of me's that I could sort of have them all make complicated things and then bring them together in this like fantasia of a thing. And that was kind of fun, but the thing was, at the end of the day, I was spending just as long, if not longer, on the piece from start to finish. There was no time it was saving me, and I would spend so much time trying to justify why I was doing it by making my own use case for it, like a means to an end and a proof to a means. They're not the same thing at the end of the day. And I think one thing I remember, this is where the acid sort of helped out too. So I would make just thousands of little avatar heads, and then I would go through and find out of like 1,000 which were the ones that were like the best, most interesting ones. And when you're looking at them small, they look pretty compelling. But I think one time I was on acid and I was looking through all of them like fully res, and there might have been like 400 that I thought were really great. But then as I looked at them closely on the acid, it's like none of these faces were looking at me. None of the eyes made any kind of contact. Like, it's really, I struggle every time when it comes to where the pupils are. There's this moment where the piece is not looking at you. It doesn't even have eyes. Then it has kind of dark shapes. Then it starts to have eyeballs. And there's a real finesse to getting the pupils positioned. They're just shapes, but putting the shapes proportionally on that page in relationship to the eyelids and the eyebrows and the nose, where like there's a moment where it's looking at you and everything else is not looking at you. And there's a very sophisticated thing. And the AI was just so, it was just so soulless and empty at that. And so I don't do it anymore. And I find that like I try to be optimistic. I gave it a shot, and I wanted to learn about it and how does it work and what is it doing. And so kind of like know the enemy. I don't consider it an enemy, but I'm not a fan, like I see it out here. Like, I don't, Brian Pinkham worked on this big kind of like, there's this, I don't know what it's called. There's like a big, it's really tall. Yeah. There's some really cool LEDs, but it's got these big panels and one's got an eyeball. It took me a fraction of a second to look at that thing and be like, fucking Midjourney? Like, are you serious? And it's just like, I don't even want to ride my bike up to it and check it out anymore. Like, it's so turned me off. And it sucks because now whenever I go through Instagram or I do like a Google search, like I've unfortunately, I don't want to be this jaded, but like my default mode is like it is artificial until proven authentic. I don't get excited about anything I see anymore. Or before I'd be like, wow, how'd they do that? Oh, look how cool that is. I just assume like, yep, prompt. And so I don't know if you guys feel that way, but it's robbed me of a lot of my appreciation for like my fellow artist by making me so suspicious. If I see something cool, I think it's probably fake before I think it's real, and I don't like that. I don't like that it's sort of it's cheapened the whole thing down. I'm just not.
I agree, because I think whenever I see AI generated images, like you say, it's pretty distinguishable.
Yeah.
But I want to go back. You were talking about the pupils, and there's a great example hanging down there. I kept looking at your piece, how painting your eyes, for people to just see Andrew's what he was discussing, right? Which the piece down there is a pretty well-known one of yours, right?
Which one?
The one right at the end.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
And that's like, look at those eyes, isn't that? I mean, Andrew's is a master. So
I was
anyway,
so high when I made that.
and
I
then-
mean, she was.
But look, she's
rad.
looking at us. And look over there and look at the mastery of
No,
Andrew.
it's-
Would you? Are you proud of that one?
I'm like almost the most proud of that piece out of any piece I think I've done in like within this community. But that was, I mean, there's a set of conditions that led up to that piece that'll never happen again. You know, it was Boom Festival 2010, 2012, and they just I was there early working, and I'm in a shipping container. And they have a magazine called the Dharma Dragon, which is like a little magazine they created for the event, and they just wanted me to do a cover for it. And I was so excited because by doing this cover, it means that I wouldn't have to be doing like physical labor in like the hot Portugal sun all day long, and I could like get away with being in the air-conditioned shipping container. And that was done within, I think, like 4 days, but like 4 days of just like binging in this container. Man, dude, there was this acid that came through that year that I brought. Yeah, I was tripping a lot. But I got this vial from a dude, and like, this stuff was unbelievable acid. I was one of the most popular guys that Boom. There's like an older woman there that she was like an old psytrance. She used to like ride a donkey, but she's seen all the acid since like the 60s, and I gave her a drop, and she called me Mr. San Francisco after that. That was my nickname, like Mr. San Francisco that's got the good acid. And so yeah, there was some amazing acid that happened on that one. But that was a good example of a piece that really, you know, there's a certain point, there's a certain inertia, and there's a certain of being just so immersed in the goal, and part of the pressure, but part of like the privilege of being able to make this avatar for this community of people that I love so much. And it's a way of me, like when I can find a way, when the art becomes a way of me being able to really manifest like my love for a specific person or a group of people, and the work becomes a conduit for that, like all the labor and all the stress. And in those moments, like there's a beautiful, it rarely happens, but where like nothing feels stressful anymore. Like the decisions just start flowing effortless, and like everything I do just makes it a little better and a little better and a little better. And I mean, I feel like that's a piece that I had like some, I don't want to get too woo-woo out there, but like I had some help with it on some level. Like maybe I had a really good diet. I was like vegan, I was vegetarian back then, I think, you know, it's a clearer channel, I don't know. But like it,
Totally exemplary, amazing piece. And of course, it's all digital. When you were referring to the portrait you just did, was it a physical?
it's a physical,
And this is completely digital, right?
it's digital, yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
But the thing about that one, has anyone seen like the Samskara show that we've done? Like the Samskara dump? So she's, thank you. She's featured really prominently in that one. She's like one of the headliners of that show. And I want to say 2016. I think the last time we had a dome out on the playa was like 2018. Years ago. It was years ago. It was out. We had the dome outside of the Mystic tent. We've had some scar back. That was the last time I think we had it out on the 2 o'clock side. And it was Sunday. It was like the last day. I mean, everyone already had their breakthroughs and breakdowns, and we were ready to like turn the generator off and get all these like just sweep and drag the wooks out of the dome and send them on their little merry ways. And I went in there for just one last round, you know, like just to kind of let everyone know, like this is it. We're turning off the Jenny after this. And I sat down there, kind of made sure everyone's settled, and then this just mysterious like half-naked Wook dude just comes up at me, and he hands me this like DMT pen. And I'm not a huge DMT fan, by the way. I mean, I respect DMT. I'm just not like, it's not like my go-to. I'm getting more into going to it, but it's definitely not like my go-to thing. My first DMT experiences were so traumatizing that I think I got the message. But I'd noticed this pattern, and I remember the Oregon eclipse? You were at the Oregon eclipse, weren't you, Harlan? Man, we showed Samskara. This is pre-Oregon eclipse. This happened before that. And man, there was so much DMT smoking happening in the Samskara that, like, I don't know if I made the sign or I joked about making a sign. When people came in, it was like DMT smoking section, non-DMT smoking section. Just because, like, you know, like the secondhand machine elves people were getting, like, we were getting complaints. You know, they were gonna take that to the board, and like I'd have to answer for that. You know, like I didn't want that in my suggestion box. It's like these fucking elves that I didn't plan on. Because you want to plan for that. You don't want an accidental machine elf fucking with you. But I couldn't understand what these kids were doing. Like, why would you blast off in the middle of it? I mean, that's just not to yuck their yum. I didn't get it. But at the point, I think at that Sunday, I had broken down enough that like I had like let go of my judgments or misunderstandings, and I was like, fuck it. That's what Sunday's all about, all out of fucks. Just fuck it. I'll try it. And I asked him, what do you do? And I'm like, do I go in really hard? He's like, just sip it. He was like, he might have been like a mescalito or some kind of trickster. But I remember doing like, okay, just taking like a couple small tokes. All right, it's feeling good, like a couple more, and then like I remember the edges of the dome sort of like dissolved, and I didn't feel like I was in a dome anymore. I'm like, okay, this is kind of happening. And it was like the third or fourth sort of like sip, like it's like, you know, you can feel that you're just ramping up. And I'd say that the outer context of it is like, you know, I do my best to create things that you guys like. And I'm like fan number one. Like I want to make something that I think is cool, and if I think it's cool, I think maybe other people will think it is cool. But sometimes, even with things like Samskara, like I put it out there, and people really liked it, and then we've been showing it so much that even I was like, kind of like, I've seen everything. I know every time I know like every polygon that's out of place, every missed frame, like. When I see it, like all I see are the problems. All I see are the things I want it to be better, you know, and it's hard as an artist, like living with work that you've done in the past. And so I feel like I've always been kind of judgmental and be like, why are people into this, you know? Like what is it about? Like it's just a movie. It's just a movie. Like how do people get so excited over a movie? And that's pre-DMT Samskara experience. And then after I kept taking on the DMT, and then Dharma came out. And Dharma comes out, like it already feels like it's coming out into space, but she was physically like in the space, and she just like zoned like right down on me and just like looked like right into my soul. And she didn't speak, she didn't like, there's no words, but she just what she communicated to me is like, what this is, what you made, what you basically accidentally discovered, like little monkey boy, is like, you made a portal to me. And that's what this is. And it was like the most beautiful, terrifying, humbling type of experience to have your own art talk to you about what you accidentally opened up for other people, unwittingly and unknowingly, for their benefit, which is cool. This is what collaboration is all about. So, cool. Yeah.
I have a question, sir.
Oh, the Samskara is the name of the movie, the Dome movie.
I have a question for you, sir.
Microphone. Yep.
First and foremost, thank you for everything.
You're so welcome for
I
everything.
love your work so much. I've had the pleasure of it many times, many places. Sorry for your loss. I hope you feel held by us.
So held. You know, just in case I don't get another chance, it's like, I fucking love you guys so much. And I am so grateful that I know I have the fucking best fans out of any artist. Like, I'm so grateful for all of you. And like, you know, I hope that no one has to like go through the kind of things that got me to the point of recognizing this, but like I think like one of the moments, and it happened after, it took a while to integrate. It took me a while to integrate all this. Like you guys loved me so much that like I wasn't capable of like, we're not really built to like suddenly find the love of like thousands of people that you've never met like fucking loving you. Like I didn't have the technology to like to receive that in the right way, so it took me like a while, but like once after like several months, some therapy and some acid, like when I finally did, this feeling that like not only like have I been held by you guys, but like I've always been held by you guys. And like the whole pantomime of me thinking that like I was falling and like knowing that like my feet like never had a chance to touch the ground because of your support is like, I want you to, if you can feel what that feels like, if I could just vicariously share that with everyone, it's one of the most amazing feelings of my life to kind of have that. And like, no matter how fucking crazy or shitty things get, like, I know that that's there. Like, it's this thing that I can like lean on now that I know, and so I don't ever have to like go through the drama of like of woe is me or like what's gonna happen. Like there's a faith that I have in myself and all of you guys that like I'm so grateful for this. So thanks for that.
I just wanted to ask you one quick question after I thanked you profusely. Just a personal bit of who your art in my life. I've looked at a lot of your art for many years. For whatever reason, I've connected with your art with the Boom Festival, specifically by total accident. Your Boom Dragon, your Boom Shiva. I just found them instinctually, and those are the ones that call to me. Anywho, my question is about Spangle Droid, because I love Spangle. Thank you for your performance in Denver, for that first snow, for the full moon, for Simon's birthday. That was the most incredible ceremony that we had in Denver all year. It was absolutely exquisite, and we got to have it many times with you. I would like to know your thoughts on Spangle and your collaboration, if you would.
That's a great question. Yeah, I love Simon. I love him to death. And like, I will say like that show was such a triumph. I mean, not only just Spangle's music or the production, but the whole community came out on that show, from like the dancers to the deco, and like, I know the guy that organized that show, and I know that he was never capable of pulling off something so awesome. You know, it was a happy fucking accident that shit even happened. You know, it was like we sold tickets before we even had Simon's fucking visa come through. Like it was a gamble from like, it was gangster that show happened. So I will give the promoter some credit for his balls of just rolling the dice and being like, yeah, we're gonna get a letter to the governor that'll get Simon's visa cleared for his the show was, like I said, that's one of the best examples of just like every aspect of the community coming together to embrace what Simon does. And I'm excited. There's some new management that Simon has, and we're looking at like a pretty dope like 2025. Like Simon wants to come back in a pretty big way, which is great because he deserves that too. You know, you've got that. We're gonna have like the tipper vacuum. You know, it's just like the Iron Throne's gonna be vacant, and who's got enough dragons to take that throne? Am I right? I don't know. A lot of pretenders, but so I'm looking forward to Simon. If you're a fan, you're gonna love what we got working on. Yeah. Awesome.
Curious, you had said earlier that you didn't have a mind's eye, and I was curious if you can talk a little bit about that and how you even knew that, or what that means exactly, or how you knew you didn't have this thing.
The moment I realized I didn't have this. So it's like, there's growing up, you know, I kind of thought when people said like imagine something or picture a thing, that I think I just thought that was all kind of like a metaphorical, you know, that was just like a thing people says, like a phrase or like a figure of speech. The moment that it occurred to me, I had already gone through art school. I had graduated. I had already had my internship, and I was in Southern California. I was working at a video game company with a friend of mine named Kevin Llewellyn. And Kevin has always been I went to work at this company because Kevin worked there, because I just wanted to be around him, because he was just one of the most just creative phenomenons that I'd ever met. I went to school with him. And he just did the most, just the most craziest like fantasy characters and scenes. And you know, I was having coffee with him, and it's just like, man, it's just like, it just feels like how do you? I was asking him like, how do you get these ideas or these things? Like, where are they coming from? Because everything, when I make a creature, I'm like piecing together different like animal anatomy, and I just kind of I start from the skeleton and I kind of build it out, and so it has to like functionally make sense as the way I'm doing things. And he was just like, I don't know, I just close my eyes. And I'm like, what do you mean you just close your eyes? And he was like sketching some type of like a character, a creature that he was drawing, and I'm like, you mean like you close your eyes and you see the thing that you're drawing? And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, do it right now. And he's like, okay. And he closes his eyes, and then he starts laughing. And this is what I said. I'm like, okay, you're seeing their character. Okay, I'm like, because everyone said like, picture an apple. Can you picture an apple in your head? And he's like, yeah. And then he starts laughing. And I'm like, why are you laughing? He's like, well, I'm laughing because the character grabbed the apple and then took a bite and then grinned at me with the apple, and that fucking blew my head open. Like, I thought he was like some type of like, maybe like phenomenon prodigy, that like he could actually close his eyes, and then I come to discover that almost everyone I talked to could do that thing. And so I did feel like my entire art career was like, I was like first place in the Special Olympics. Like, I had this like major handicap that like everyone else had, that I didn't have this thing. So it was a bit frustrating. It was a bit of a bummer. And I definitely, it would be really cool to just, I can't even imagine what it'd be like to just close your eyes and just see things. But it's different for everyone, because everyone has varying degrees of control over that. Some people like Kevin have just Avatar in their head, and they can just direct movies and see them. And some people, I know it's kind of blurry, and some people they're not as in control. So it's not like there's a huge spectrum between like photographic memory and total mind blindness. And I'm not all the way to the spectrum, but I'm very close to, like, when I close my eyes, I just see this like static black void. There's just no shapes, there's no things there. I can dream, and I can have really active dreams, but I can't close my eyes and conjure a thing. You know, like I'm really bad at guided visualization meditation. Never understood that, you know. But it's a thing that like my whole process has been a adaptation around that kind of peculiar set of circumstances. And so I feel things when I draw. Like, I can feel when I put a color down or a mark. There's an intuitive, like, a compass that's like, yes, fuck yes, meh, fuck no, you know. And so I'm more of a vibe artist than like even visionary artist. I'm an imposter in this scene, because I don't do that. I don't have psychedelic. I don't even see stuff like when I'm on ayahuasca. Like, it's just all horrible path. It's weird. But everybody's different. You know, you can never assume that someone else is having a similar experience as you. And because of my experience, and I've come to accept it, and I like it, because like I can turn everything off when I close my eyes. I think I'd be really freaked out if you didn't have control over what happens when you close. Like, I don't know how you guys go, like, get to bed at night. There's a lot of questions. I probably have more questions for you than you do with me. For me, just imagine nothing. You know, it's just like, It's like the best way of saying it is like if I was in a dark room or I put on like a blindfold, I see the same thing with my eyes open as my eyes closed if I'm in a dark closet. Like there's no distinction. But I think that also there's a space I have where it's like out of that void, I think it's easier for me to pull other things that come through, I guess. There's less competition, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sorry, I have a comment.
Sure.
This is meant for you and for everyone else. You really emphasized about deadlines with your work. So I hope that, you know, nobody else has to meet a deadline today, because it's like, it's an internal thing that you decide your own deadline. We don't want to put our deadlines for ourselves, meaning like we want to continue living as long as we can and not put a deadline for ourselves. Just want to put that message out there.
Thank you. Great. I don't know how we are on time. Is there another speaker? How to be respectful of the space? Okay. Guys, so we're done? Am I getting a confirmation? Awesome. I think we are. Thank you guys so much for coming. I mean it when I say that I love you guys. I really do. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks everybody for showing up and being part of this. I say tonight, doing 4:30, shameless plug, 4:30 at the Cube, and then that parlays into Random Ribs, which is going to be a dope sunrise. And yeah, guys, just have the best 2024 burn you can, and fuck your burn, and I love you, and I'll see you next year.